the presidents are not going to go to Chicago next week. There will not be a vote on the 12-team college football playoff proposal. And I spoke with Notre Dame athletic director Jack Swarbrick right before this, and he said it was one of the best meetings today in Dallas where the commissioners met that they've ever had. And it was very substantive. They just did not feel comfortable at this time making a recommendation to the presidents to vote on next week. So the commissioners will still go to Chicago. They're going to continue to hash out the issues that people have around the table with this 12-team format. Some of those things include the academic calendar, the low but possible 17th game, the health and safety of the players, combined with the fact that some of these games could be happening during finals and exam weeks. Winterization of stadiums throughout the Big Ten. There are just a lot of different things that have been brought up, and of course the Rose Bowl being one of them. So no vote. That's important because these guys are on a timetable. Within like 10 months, they need to figure this out.
Heather, let's go back 3 months, I think, when the news broke, or maybe even farther back than that. And at that moment in time, I know there were still some hoops to go through, but what was the feeling of the people that matter at the CFP that this was going to get approved sometime in September?
Well, nobody that was in Dallas in June thought this was going to be rubber stamped. I mean, SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey has said repeatedly from that day that there are plenty of hurdles that could delay this. And then, of course, you have the drama of the summer, which was Oklahoma and Texas going to the SEC. There were some raised eyebrows about Greg Sankey being on the 4-person working group while he was negotiating Oklahoma and Texas and whatever role there was in those conversations. But I've talked to Greg at length about that. I've talked to Mountain West Commissioner Craig Thompson. I think I've told you this before. What were people supposed to do? Was he supposed to grab Bob Bowlesby in the hallway of their meetings in Dallas and say, hey, this is what's going on? So there's just been a lot of drama, quite frankly, and mistrust. And I think those things have played a role in delaying it on top of the issues that were already there.
You mentioned the Rose Bowl. For those who are not as literate in the machinations of CFP politics, what exactly is the story there?
Well, look, at the end of the day, it's about money. And if the Rose Bowl has to give its media rights to the CFP, they don't want to do that. They are staunch in their tradition, their history, their time, their date, and they also want the media rights. So that's the big hang up there.
Is that open for negotiation?
There are people within the room who think that that can be solved. I have not spoken to anybody at the Rose Bowl to get their take on it today, but I can tell you that there are certainly people who think that that can be worked out. There are people who think that this can still possibly happen before the end of the contract. There are one of the other hangups, Paul, is that a majority of the people around that table would like to open it to more television partners. Whether or not that can happen before the end of the 12-year contract, which goes through 2025, obviously has to play a part of whether or not ESPN would be willing to do that and whether or not they could come to terms with that. So the Rose Bowl's media rights and the finding multiple TV partners are all part of this conversation, and big ones.
Heather, when this started leaking out in May and into June, there was not a promise, but there was at least a feeling that perhaps this thing could happen in 2 years. Bill Hancock said that and opened the door, and there was a lot of enthusiasm in college football. I think I know the answer, but I ask it anyway. What's the likelihood of this expansion, regardless of what it looks like, happening before the end of this contract now?
I think it's highly unlikely. I would be shocked. And I say that because we're sitting here in September of 2021 and they don't know what they're doing yet. Like I said, we're probably looking at a window of about 10 months maybe to figure it out. And Paul, they have not yet found the host sites for the final 2 years of this contract. So in addition to finding the host cities for the remaining years of this contract, try to figure out how to do that for a new contract when you don't know what's going on. So there are all of those pieces of the puzzle that would make it extremely difficult to do this sooner than later.
Heather, thank you. I know you're in the middle of a story. We will let you get back to your keyboard, but it's always great to talk to you, and thanks so much for the information.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.